WNST, Towson, Baltimore, and WNST.net. It is a beautiful summer around here, but not so much if you love baseball, but certainly tuning into the baseball wars in other places. Luke, a little scene with the Mets over the weekend, and I don't catch all the hubbub because, when they take your press pass away, you don't have to worry about getting into a fight with a baseball player in a clubhouse. But you're in these clubhouses every day. Last time I was in a baseball clubhouse, I don't know, it was probably a couple years ago on my baseball tour. A couple of those teams decided that I was a real media member and credentialed me. But I did it for a long time, and I know it's a lot different now. It's a lot different now with the Ravens than it used to be. Certainly at the collegiate level, but keeping the players away from the media seems to be the number one goal in the world of the Chad Steele types.
Well, I think what we're finding, and it's funny, as much as we've talked about the Orioles, you look at the Mets right now, a team that was trying, and they fire their pitching coach. They bring back Phil Regan, of all people, to be their interim pitching coach. There's a name.
The Vulture, baby.
Yeah, but they've just been a mess. And now, of course, the big story that really was the story of the sports world, I guess anything that wasn't Women's World Cup on Sunday, was Mickey Callaway getting into an altercation with Tim Healy of Newsday, Jason Vargas going after Healy, and teammates having to restrain him. And look, I mean, there's always a backstory to this, whether players don't like something snarky that a reporter tweeted or something that they wrote. Same thing with coaches. I mean, so there's always some of that. And I think that's something that shouldn't be overlooked in this whole discussion because, I mean, reporters need to be accountable as well. But the genesis of this was apparently after Mickey Callaway was asked about some bullpen decisions late in their Sunday's game. This reporter just said to Mickey, "I'll see you tomorrow." And Mickey apparently took it as being sarcastic or, I don't know, combative after what was kind of a tense post-game scene. And he just snapped, and he's cursing at him and just made for a really, really ugly scene for, let's face it, an organization that didn't need this. I mean, no one wants this kind of thing surrounding their organization. But when you have the manager cursing at a reporter within earshot of other reporters, other people, and then you have a player going after that same reporter. I mean, on top of the Mets underachieving and being a team that was actually trying to win this year, and they've hovered below 500. It's just a bad scene, but I think it does lend itself to conversation as far as where we are in.
Well, I don't know where professional is. You know what I mean? I mean, I watched Steve Smith's act here, as a football player over the course of time. I've seen lots of this. I've been doing this my whole life. I don't know where professionalism begins and ends. I've seen some media members who aren't very professional, who work at other radio stations, thank God. And I don't know where the line is. The line is wherever the rich guy makes it. That's America in 2019. Literally. I mean, the guy with the money makes the rules. I would think that, whenever the Wilpon family or whomever's in charge are running around with the Mets, whatever they think is what matters. It's not what Rob Manfred thinks or you and I think or what the editors at Newsday think or whatever. This will go relatively unchecked, I would think. I mean, threatening to kill a reporter, you're not going to get a 5-game suspension for that. Not in the modern, I don't think. I mean, maybe I'm wrong, but I don't think that's going to be the case.
Yeah, I would say probably not. I mean, and the Mets were already in damage control mode Sunday evening. They put out a statement. From what I understand, Healy was contacted and personally, they apologized to him. Now, what that means for Mickey Callaway, what that means for Vargas, I'm in agreement with you. I don't think you're going to see a suspension per se, although Mickey Callaway at this point could be losing his job just by the way the team's performing, and now this on top of that.
It tells me Mickey Callaway's a joke to be going after a reporter in New York City in 2019. It tells me Mickey Callaway's in over his head. Literally. That's exactly what it tells. It tells me Mickey Callaway needs to be managing Norfolk or Tidewater or something next week. You know what I mean?
Or being a really good pitching coach, which he was in Cleveland. So, but yeah, in New York especially, and look, it's not okay to do that anywhere, but in a market like New York, are you kidding me? That feels like again, we might be reconvening in a few days, and he's no longer the manager of the Mets, and you'll point to that as being the last straw. But it's one of those scenarios that, fortunately, to this degree, doesn't happen that often in the sports world, but it does happen, and I've seen nothing quite like that in my own experiences, but I've certainly seen a player chirp at a reporter about something they wrote or something they said or something they tweeted. And by the way, reporters need to be accountable, too, for what they say.
Oh, by the way, Rafael Palmeiro came after me with a bat one time, and Davey Johnson got between us. So, and I didn't even say what he thought I said, for crying out loud. I mean, these guys got rabbit ears. I mean, it reminds me of my 20s and what I left behind in the world of the Brady Anderson, the macho types and all of this. I mean, Brady Anderson told me to leave Baltimore. Literally, leave the city is what he told me. So it's hilarious. You know what I mean? A guy that doesn't even live here telling me to leave here. So I've been through all of this, and I've seen all of this, and I do know this, that the reporters aren't going away, and the players and the managers come and go. The only thing that matters is Peter G. Angelos and me, because we're the things that don't go away, which is why you have a press pass to go to the game this week and I don't, because I wasn't willing to deal with this, to have managers tell me they're going to knock me out and pitchers telling me they're going to calling me MFers and whatever. If that's going to be accepted by their Peter Angelos and that's going to be accepted by Rob Manfred, that's what we're going to have. I mean, we have a president that lies to the people every day. We have a PR woman that stood in front of everyone for a year and a half and lied every day. But the reporters are always the bad guy, and I think that's the hardest part of this, is the enemy of the people thing that starts at the top. But more than that, when it gets down to our level at sports, Luke, where we walk into a 21-year-old kid's third-round draft pick, and that kid has been told by everybody before he met Chad Steele that we're evil and we're out to do them no good. And that's what the media is in 2019 in dealing with young athletes. We can do them no good, only harm, according to their mom, their dad, their high school coach, their college coach, the guy in the locker room, the veteran play. All of that, begins very, very early on. They all like, when they're 15, to hold up which shoe they're wearing or what hat of the high school they're going to. They want that part of the media, but when they can't control it, they all want to be on Twitter, they all want to be on Instagram until they can't control it. And, with the younger group of people in the modern era of having had social media, being able to speak to the world probably before they should have been able to, quite frankly, on their phones, we're getting a different kind of athlete at 21, 22, 23 that maybe they understand the world a lot better than 44-year-old Mickey Callaway does, apparently.
Well, I think I'm glad you brought up social media, because that's such a huge part of this dynamic and this ever-evolving relationship between media and the individuals they cover, between media and their own audience that they're trying to serve, whether it be readers, viewers, people clicking on pages on the internet, what have you, that there is and I think there's an ever-growing sentiment among some athletes. I don't think it's the case with every athlete. In fact, I don't think it's the case with most athletes. But I think there is a perception that I have my own Twitter, I have my own Instagram, I have my own platform, whether it's Players Tribune, let's say, where I don't need you guys to get my message out. I can put out my own message, but at the same time, as we know, within the social media realm, there's still a place to have what should be a third party that's objective, even though it's difficult to ever have 100% objectivity. I mean, I think we all understand that, because as media members, we're human beings as well. But I think there's just such a sense, and we see this with teams with their own websites now, where they're trying to control the message. They're trying to get all the eyeballs that were previously only going to independent media, and we see that. So there's competition between teams and, quote, independent media. So it's really And it's a moving target, quite frankly. Even from the time that I started doing this on a part-time basis in 2009, how much it's changed. But I think what is disappointing to me, and you touched on this, and I agree, is the growing sense of, and I mean, it's one thing to call enemy of the people. I don't think most people subscribe to that sentiment. I certainly would hope not. But there certainly is a growing thought among, and I'm bringing this back to the sports world because I don't cover politics. I don't cover crime per se. But there definitely is a sentiment that exists that the media are the guys that, they're stirring the pot. They're trying to cause trouble. They're always going to be negative. And I think that's something that probably, that always existed to some level, at least on a smaller scale. But I think that's something that becomes more and more prevalent. And, I think there's even coaches, and I'm not saying here locally, I think anywhere, where right off the bat, these guys be careful around these guys. These guys are no good.
Don't trust these people. You can't trust them.
Yeah. And right off the bat, it just creates an environment that right away you're having to break down walls. And are you able to do that with certain players and have good relationships with them? Yeah, absolutely. Believe me, I would say I've covered more good guys than bad by a wide margin, both Ravens and Orioles in my brief media career. But it's definitely something that you have to be mindful of. And this is why I'll bring it back, and not saying anything about Healy specifically or Newsday specifically, but that's why it is important for media to be professional. And in a case when you're a beat reporter, understand that anything you tweet or anything you write, you're coming face-to-face with that individual. So you better be ready to stand your ground. That's not to say that they have any right to intimidate you. But if I'm going to sit here on the radio and brazenly say that so-and-so really stinks, is an abomination, he's a disgrace, and then I'm going to sit there and go into the clubhouse and not expect that individual to potentially see that and take exception to that, well, that's on me then. So you always have to have that decorum. You have to be professional. You have to understand that there are more professional ways to convey that someone's not doing a very good job than just saying it in a way that sounds personal or petty or mean-spirited. But at the same time, to your point, there are a lot of players and coaches who do tend to have rabbit ears, and it's funny. I can say, and I'm not going to name names, but I can recall times, not often, but a few times over the years where I wrote something or said something that I felt was completely innocuous and not at all something where I was trying to make someone looking bad. It was just a case of telling it like it was. And that individual really takes exception to it. But, by no means. I have no problem with someone questioning something I say or having an issue with what I say, but it needs to be done in a professional way and not a way where a manager's cursing out a guy and calling him a you-know-what and then a player coming after him and needing to be restrained. There's no place for that. There's no excuse for that. Never should a reporter be in a position where they should be threatened to that degree. Like I said, you want to take up something that they said, have at it, as a former coach here in town would say. But it needs to be done the right way. And I'll also say there have been times where I've said something critical of. I remember this was probably 3 or 4 years ago, and the Orioles at that point were still very competitive, very much in the pennant race, and they had a particularly tough loss, and they made some mistakes, and it was one of those losses that wasn't just a tough loss in the standings, but it was an ugly loss. And I put something up on Twitter that it was an absolutely brutal loss, and I'll name this individual because he's someone who had a pretty stand-up relationship with the media over the years. I recall Adam Jones calling me over to his locker the day or two after that, and he said, "Luke, I saw what you tweeted. You said it was a brutal loss. You were right." And it was just one of those deals where he was letting me know that he was paying attention to what I was saying, but it was one of those deals where he respected the fact that I told it like it was. And you're going to have that. You're going to have that banter. And by the way, that's good to have that because that's how you build rapport, and that's how you have players who have a healthier relationship with the media. But what happened on Sunday, wouldn't say it happens often, but it does happen, and when it does happen, it's something that is just a reminder of how there really is a wall that's built up and a perception there that the media is out to get players, out to get coaches, and I don't think that's the case 98% of the time. Does it happen sometimes? Sure. Does it happen in a market like New York where the competition with so many papers and so many media outlets is fierce? Yeah, sure. But again, it still doesn't excuse anything that Mickey Callaway or Jason Vargas did on Sunday.
He is Luke Jones. He is Baltimore Luke, and Luke at WNST.net. It is a great week to dust off some stuff around here. We're doing Baltimore Positive. We're going to be at Jennings Cafe this Thursday with Nancy Grasmick and Don Moeller, of course, with us. You heard our conversation with Mayor Jack Young this week, as well as with Fraser Smith, and looking back on Len Bias and Governor Schaefer. All of it at BaltimorePositive.com. Next week on Tuesday, doing a double dip downtown at Fadley's. We're going to have Matt Gallagher, who was a former chief of staff with Martin O'Malley, as well as Ron Shapiro, talking about the future of the city and Baltimore Positive, and probably some Cal Ripken and Kirby Puckett. But the Padres are in town this week. Luke, I've got my mural from the WNST studios here with all of my old Padres stuff, with whether it be Junior Seau, Kevin Brown, Bruce Bochy, I believe that's Greg Vaughn, Trevor Hoffman, the great Larry Lucchino, the architect of all things Orioles. We're actually drinking beer there. Tony Gwynn, of course, at the All-Star game with Jeannie Zalesko. And so anyway, San Diego Padres in. I'm going to be wearing my Padre jersey. If you see me running around with my Tony Gwynn stuff. A lot of these interviews, and it's funny, Luke, I pick out a simple photo like this and say, how many Hall of Famers in one photo, right? I put this under glass in 1998 when I got to the radio station. It's one of the first things I did, right? And I should probably take the glare off and do it this way. Yeah, there you go. That's a better glare. So underneath of this piece of glass, there's Junior Seau, Bruce Bochy, Tony Gwynn, and Trevor Hoffman. And Larry Lucchino will probably be in the Hall of Fame before it's all over. So that's 5. Kevin Brown didn't quite make it, but he's in the Hall of Cash. He made more money than anybody else. So we're going to give him a Hall of Fame for that. And what the hell I was doing wearing a sport coat at Wrigley Field, I have no idea in 1998, but I was. So it was a lovely blue sport coat. I guess I felt like I needed to be professional at Wrigley Field when I was hanging out with Harry Carey. But I found all these conversations, including the Junior Seau one there, and Kevin Brown, not a Hall of Famer. I couldn't run that. Hey, Luke, I'm doing this Hall of Fame thing, and I have my own, like, sort of little Hall of Fame, like with Roger Clemens and, Pete Rose would be in my Hall of Fame. So the interviews I have with them, I'm going to run. But then there's, like, the Kurt Schilling conversations and the Fred McGriff conversations. How do you feel about the guys being in the hall of on the next step, that I run those interviews or don't run those interviews? If you had an interview with Kurt Schilling, would you call it a Hall of Fame interview, or can you not call it that?
I mean, technically you can't, but, I mean, Kurt Schilling, and say what you want about his post-playing career and political beliefs or controversial things he's posted, I think he has a Hall of Fame career, and I think a lot of people really put him and Messina in different ways. Not that their careers are mirror images, because certainly Schilling has the big-time postseason moments, whereas even though Messina, you look at his postseason numbers, it's not as though he was a scrub by any stretch of the imagination. But technically, you can't refer to him as Hall of Fame, but I think there's plenty of relevance there. I think he should be in the Hall of Fame, regardless of what you think of him as an individual, as a human being.
That's how I felt about my Andy Pettit and Roger Clemens interviews. I felt like, you know what? Fred McGriff, I'm going to include these interviews, including Don Zimmer, who is not in the Hall of Fame. There's a couple of people I was kind of like a little shocked. Marvin Miller, obviously, I can't find that interview, but if I ever find the Marvin Miller, I'm playing it because he belongs in the Hall of Fame. But, I'm not trying to break the rules of what is a Hall of Famer, but if I had a ballot, Schilling would have a vote. Messina would have had a vote. Burt Blyleven, I got 5 conversations with Blyleven before he went in the Hall of Fame about why he belonged in the Hall of Fame, and now he's in the Hall of Fame. So I can call him a Hall of Famer, but I have gone through these and wondered out loud, is George Young in the Hall of Fame? He was in the Baltimore Hall of Fame, my City College Hall of Fame, so I'm going to run that stuff. But I'm trying to go through and cull the best of the best of the best and make sure we get it on the radio next month. And I don't feel like I can tell the full story without Curt Schilling being in my studio in 1993 for 2 hours talking about what he wanted his career to be before I ever pitched in a World Series game. So I have these really cool archival conversations that I want to run, and this is my one chance to do it. So even if he's not a Hall of Famer, you're going to hear from Andy Pettitte next month. How about that?
Yeah, well, you just say it's a Hall of Fame caliber conversation. How about that? That's what you want. And
we're bending the rules.
It's funny. I'd be remiss if I didn't. You brought up Fred McGriff, and for me, his career comes into sharper focus from as far as Hall of Fame credentials when someone like Harold Baines is picked. And I know Baines is picked by the committee, and I'm not beating a dead horse anymore there. I'm happy for Harold Baines. He's a St. Michael's guy, Maryland native, and a former Oriole, 3 different tenures with the Birds. But if Harold Baines is going to be in the Hall of Fame, I think Fred McGriff definitely needs to be there. So, yeah, I have no problem.
Harold Baines never did the show. He was quiet, so I don't have any tapes of Harold Baines.
He was a very quiet individual. But
by the way, Jose Canseco. I got Jose Canseco calling in here on June the 18th, 1998. So there's Jose. So Jose called. And then I have Peter.
He's in the Hall of Fame of, nutty thinking or just a home run going off your head?
Here's one for the archives, and this is a Hall of Famer. You ready? Peter Gammons from September 28th, 1996. You think we talked about the Orioles and the Yankees a little bit in that one? So, yeah, but Gammons is in and Canseco is not in. Pat Gillick is in, by the way, too. Gillick is on the same tape that Canseco is on. And then I have, Rod Woodson's a real Hall of Famer, right? So we count him in. Chipper Jones, John Schuerholz, and Andres Galarraga. Galarraga could be a Hall of Famer, right? Give my Venezuelan brother some kid.
No.
Tom Glavine, he's a real Hall of Famer, right?
He had a nice run, but not enough greatness over a long period of time. But yeah, there's some good names there. There's no doubt about that.
I got to run these tapes here. Let's see. Mike Messina, he's now a Hall of Famer. This Mike Messina chat is from January the 21st. 1994. So this was pre-strike, pre-Cal, post-Camden Yards, pre-Oriole,
That was post Bill Hasselman brawl. So
that is post-Hasselman brawl. Okay, how's your shoulder feeling, Moose? Great.
Exactly, because, hey, 93 was a tough season for him in that regard. And he didn't look at his numbers there compared to the rest of the 90s. That's good stuff right there. There's no question.
Remember I talked to Orlando Pace when he was our first guest at 7 in the morning back at the Super Bowl. He's wearing his gold jacket.
2 or 3 years ago?
No, it was this year. Orlando Pace was this year.
I thought it was last year. Okay.
No, Orlando Pace was
together.
Orlando Pace was Minnesota, or was it, where the hell were we this year? Where did we go this year? I forgot already. Atlanta. It was Atlanta. Orlando Pace came to us in Atlanta. Okay. So Orlando Pace came by.
It's entirely possible we've talked to him more than once.
Well, he came by, and I found the picture of his baby fat. Do you remember that? I showed the picture of he and I together. I found the interview from that day, and this was, Wilbur Montgomery's also on this. So it was Grant Wistrom, Ray Agnew, Torrey Holt, Kevin Dyson, who was one of the stars, Frank Wycheck, Craig Hentrich, Eddie Robinson, and Jackie Harris, all on a Super Bowl 34 Atlanta interview tape.
Very good.
Yeah, so I found all this stuff. I'm going to run it. Curt Schilling's interview, by the way, his first sit-down with me in the studio. Here's the tape. I'm holding it up. It was December 23rd, 1993. So he had just pitched in and lost the World Series. I think he really bagged on Mitch Williams in this. Seriously,
really?
I think he destroyed Mitch Williams on this tape. So,
really?
Yeah.
That's interesting.
Yeah, so I'm going to go through. I have all of this stuff, dude. It's 1993. Do you know how long ago that was, Luke? How old were you in 1993?
I was 10 years old in 1993.
I had just gotten back from driving across the border from Toronto where Carter hit the home run off of Mitch Williams. And so this was 8 weeks after that. Curt was sleeping on his in-laws' couch across the street from my mother on Bank Street because Curt married my best friend. growing up, and he spent the holiday on the couch. He literally lived on the couch over there across the street, even after he'd pitched in the World Series, because he had just got shipped in from Tucson. They didn't own a home then. Literally, he was on the minor league shuttle in 92 and 93, coming up to Philadelphia. So, there you have it. Memories like the corner of my mind.
Memories.
Absolutely. July, Hall of Fame month. August 3rd is our 21st anniversary around here, the entire month of July. If it's not a Hall of Famer, it'll be Kurt Schilling. It'll be, Paul Hornung. It'll be people in the Hall of Fame or near the Hall of Fame or arguing about the Hall of Fame or Andy Pettit or Roger Clemens. So make sure you're tuning it in. All of our WNST coverage brought to you by our friends at Planet Fitness. They bring you our morning newspaper, which we are remodeling and revising in the next month. You'll want to sign up. Make sure you subscribe to that. Also, our friends at Friedmont Mortgage. Don't make a 30-year mistake by choosing the wrong lender. You need Carl Delmont and the right lender. Watching all this women's soccer's got me all fired up because, of course, no one loves women's soccer more than Carl Delmont, the owner of the Harrisburg Heat, the men's club up in Harrisburg. Find them at Freedmont.com as well. Al Seafood, completely remodeled inside. Chad sent me home with scallops last week, and I feel bad because I didn't take any pictures of how beautiful they were. My wife browned them in the butter sauce, and we worked that all up. But those scallops, stop by. See all the hubbub. They said that Robert Irvine stopped by. It's just a rumor at Al's Seafood. Stemmers Run in Eastern Avenue. The oldest seafood house in Baltimore is now remodeled. Go see them. Stemmers Run and Eastern Avenue. Chad the Crab Man. While you're down there, make sure you grab an Icy Delight on the way out, especially if it's hot. It's in the Middlesex Shopping Center. There's 6 of them around town. I've talked about Icy Delights around here, and I'm going to be sharing my addiction with you all summer long. Charles Newsonoff & Sons, they've been doing jewelry, watches, engagement rings, custom designs forever and ever and ever. Sydney's out there. Find them at charlesnewsonoff.com. You can find them right on Cedar Hill in Parkville, and right around the corner. But you can see them right off Paring Parkway. Just look up. You'll see it. Charles Newsonoff & Sons, 661-5050, the way to find them. And big thanks to Sid for taking care of my wife's wedding band. It kind of snapped in half. Long story. Sid saved the day. Thank you, Charles Newsonoff & Sons. Also, our friends at Hammer and Nails, the Ultimate Man Cave Nirvana. I got my hair cut. I look good. A little gel in it. My summer cut. You get a manicure, pedicure. It is a man cave Nirvana. I did not drink the scotch, but you can. We had Brad on last week. I did get the hot towel, though. The hot towel felt nice. Shave, relax, adult beverages. It is in the Owings Mills Town Center. You need a haircut. Get the deluxe plan. Go to Hammer and Nails. You see me wearing the shirt as well. Model Lyric, I'm going to be there this weekend. Diana Ross, the Magic. I had a friend saw Diana Ross up at Radio City last week. Said it was magical, truly magical. Diana Ross, the diva, coming to the Model Lyric this week. Johnny Lang on the 11th. Raymond LaMontagne. He sings prettier than I say his name. In October, there's always magic at the Model Lyric. They're our partner. Get on down to the Model Lyric. I saw Bill Maher a couple weeks ago. I sat on the roof, literally the last row of the entire hall for Bill Maher, and I still had a great seat. All the Mahers and the Mayors. My son and his wife and my wife, my son, his wife, and my wife. That's his mother-in-law, but he doesn't call her that. They sat on the roof for John Mayer and loved it. The Model Lyric, intimate, even at the top. Model-Lyric.com. Find out the entire summer and fall schedule. Lots of new shows being announced as well at the Model Lyric. All right, Luke is Luke at WNST.net. I am Nasty at WNST.net. Big thanks to all of our new sponsors out there. We have so many of them. We've been signing them up. The Baltimore Positive Initiative has been incredible. Fadley's with Mayor Jack Young. We're back there next Tuesday. We're going to be at Jennings for the first time with Nancy Grasmick this week. And, of course, we'll be back at State Fair in Catonsville as well for the hot dog eating competition on the 4th of July and the incredible 4th of July celebration that they have in the Ville. I'll be the one wearing the red, white, and blue. Maybe a little Kelly Green and gold for my Dundalk, too. Nasty at WNST.net, Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, Snapchat, Instagram. Streaming live everywhere in the world. And the buyatoyota.com audio vault gets you there from anywhere. I was listening from Ocean City over the weekend. We are WNST.net, AM 1570, WNST Towson, Baltimore. And we never stop getting you ready for July and Hall of Fame month here at WNST.